You made it. You made it to the final day. You made it to the final hours. Give yourselves a round of applause. Yes! You survived. I survived too. I'm here. We're all here together. Good morning. My name's Dillon TenBrink. I'm a distinguished engineer at the Home Depot. Been with the company a little over 14 years now, and one of the things that I do, both professionally and personally, is I'm a builder. I love to put things together. This is a picture from one of 17 homes that I've built in Austin as part of Habitat for Humanity, work that we do in the community. But I also build a bunch of things. I'm a kit builder, I've built airplanes, I've built all sorts of things. And one of the things that I'm most proud of is the platform that we've built that runs our stores. And so today I wanted to share with you lessons learned along the way of building the edge platform that powers the Home Depot retail experience out there today. We're going to give you some major points to consider. If you are just starting down this road of building your own edge platform, I hope you take away some of the lessons learned and you won't fall into some of the pitfalls that we did along the way. And if you're an experienced edge builder or platform builder, maybe here's some additional things that you might relate to or consider as you continue to grow your platform. But first, I need to know, how many of you know about the Home Depot? It's my favorite question ever. Everybody loves the Home Depot, right? Do I have any Canadians in the room? Excellent, Canadians. How about folks from Mexico? Oh my gosh, I love our Mexican stores. Thank you, Pablo. We are the world's largest home improvement retailer. We have over 2,300 locations spread across North America. We also have one of the largest retail websites in the world. And one of the challenges is that we have to have all of these edge sites out there powering our retail experience. Also, another fun fact, I want to welcome those of you who are traveling as well. The Home Depot is both founded and based here in Atlanta, Georgia. So if you've liked your trip out here to Atlanta, we welcome you. Hopefully you got over the cold weather earlier this week. Whenever you're starting to build something new, and in this case, we're going to relate it to building a home, just like the Habitat homes, you need to know the neighborhood that you're building in. And so we had an existing edge platform that has powered our stores for about the last 2.5 decades. That platform was built in a time where connectivity, reliability, connectivity was on the end of really slow leased lines, maybe T1s, things that were not terribly reliable. Plus, the retail experience wasn't anything like it was today. You had parts and tools in stores, but there was no online experience, no digital manifestation of the store. And so as such, we built that platform around concepts that were store-centric. Authoritative data, like inventory data and such, lived out in the store, and we synchronized that all back using a series of batch processes. But the thing is that as you're considering to build a platform, you can't just throw a bunch of ideas on a PowerPoint slide and propose it. You have to have the right timing. And so the first lesson learned that I want you to take away is to understand your window of transformation. You don't get this opportunity every day to go build a new edge platform. You have to know the right timing. And for us, that came in the middle part of the last decade, around 2015, 2016 timeframe. There were massive structural changes happening in the retail landscape. You all have engaged with this and you understand this. A decade ago, you were walking into stores to buy items. Now you pop out your phone and say, I want it delivered to my doorstep tomorrow. Or I want it delivered to that job site at a particular time and place. Or I want to go pick it up in store or curbside. Maybe I just want it direct shipped to my home. The rise of interconnected retail caused us at the Home Depot to rethink why we had a store-centric approach to our data, because no longer was the store the center of the universe. Now the customer and their needs were the center of our retail universe. There was also a move in technology. Many of you went through the agile transformation. Our software engineers, our developers wanted to deliver features for the business more quickly. And the best answer we had for them on the Heritage platform was, great, I'll deploy your feature in the next 3 months. We had this vast rollout schedules that were based on traditional software deployment methods. And that just was not keeping up with the pace of our business. Then there was a confluence of refresh opportunities. Hardware, software moves on predictable cycles of refresh. Our hardware has to be replaced every 5 to 7 years. Devices may only last 3. Operating systems, databases, things like that. We looked at the roadmaps and we aligned them all and said, wow, there's a really interesting opportunity right here about 2019 in which nearly everything in the store is coming up for refresh. So what could we do? We could take a real blue sky approach. And so we took and sketched up on a whiteboard our core set of design ideas. And I'm really happy to say that these design ideas, which started out on a whiteboard in my office in 2017, still hold true today. We needed a resilient core platform. Like I said, the stores are still the hub of our retail organization. It's what you all interact with every day. And so it needed to be stable and resilient, but another caveat to that working out at the edge is it had to fit within the existing footprint. We were not going to roll all new capacity and massive amounts of compute out to the edge to be able to facilitate this. We wanted to gain some real-time observability. This was one of our pain points with our heritage platform, is knowing which stores were up, which stores were down, what state were they in. Everything, I'm looking at my friends down here in engineering, and they're like, how do we determine how the stores are up? Well, let's ping them all with a script and see which ones respond. We couldn't do that as we continued to grow our operations. The growth of platform engineering was happening, and so meeting our needs of our application developers to be able to ship software more quickly and more agilely. And the rise of new data models, the need for modern data services. As we were beginning to build out an interconnected retail operating environment, more and more of our authoritative data was moving to the cloud. And so we needed to rethink how we were shipping data to and from the edge. Critically, all of this had to fit within the constraints that we had out there. And the first proposition in this era was to bring cloud to edge. It was all the rage. We were moving things to public cloud, but the edge isn't like the cloud. And so one of the things that I want you to remember is that when you're building an edge platform, you need to design for the constraints of the edge. The edge is not the cloud. And just like your home build, right? There's limited square footage available on your lot. You can only build a foundation so big. It's defined by terrain and conditions and the environment. That's true of our edge environment as well. Our foundation has its limits. And when you think about a Home Depot store, there is no data closet. There is no environmental controls. We can't sort of infinitely expand capacity like you would in the cloud. But it is super critical to have an edge presence in the communities that we serve. The idea is that each site can be run autonomously. It can run even when not connected to the network or to the cloud, so that we can continue to serve communities in their time of need. Now, there's a great article out there, too, I want to reference that at the bottom of the list here in Edge Monsters, which is an industry working group that we have, go into more detail about the differences of cloud and edge, and I encourage you to check that out. So with that in mind and the limitations that we were working within, we needed to build our first service, and that was a container runtime. Now, naturally, we're at KubeCon. We built this on top of Kubernetes. But it wasn't so much about Kube itself. It was how do we create the conditions for Kube to succeed out in the edge. And the idea is that we needed to create something that was truly composable. So separating image out from configuration, from platform base, and to be able to pull those things together through a build orchestration program in real time. Look, Kubernetes distros will change, and over the course of building and operating our edge platform, we've changed the core distribution on the edge platform 3 times. But each time we did it, we didn't have to go back and rebuild a bunch of the things about our build pipeline. We could just drop in the new distribution. The other thing that composability gave us is the ability to build these clusters elsewhere. And that benefit will come in handy later on. So what do we do about pushing apps to these clusters, right? In a heritage model, we were pushing applications from the center location and batch reconciling them back. So a key consideration when you're building out on the edge, you have to decide to be eventually consistent. We think this is the only successful model for edge operation. And mainly because if you are trying to manage all the complexities of a push-based model, retry logic, maybe a store is down, your different time zones, different network conditions, like it just becomes a tree of failure to have to manage. And so swapping that around and saying everything on the edge is going to be eventually consistent. It's going to pull from a centralized repository. And we settled pretty early on a GitOps and Flux-based model for pulling configs. This is not revolutionary, but what's interesting is expanding that out to over 2,000 sites. Having your devs write configuration YAML for 2,300 sites was not going to be attainable. Also, we needed some level of uniqueness because software rolls at different waves. There may be a V1 going to a certain buying office, but a V2 going to another region. And V3, by the way, is piloting in 10 stores in the Atlanta area. So what we did was we created a templating engine to be able to remove that toil from the developers. This is some of the custom code that we had to create when creating this edge platform. And it saved our devs from having to manage mountains of YAML. But this is a core platform engineering concept, right? And I talked to several of you in the room here before we started. You're platform engineers, you're platform operators. What is the one thing that we are all trying to do as platform engineers? Remove toil from our devs, make their lives easier, right? And that is our next point that I want you to remember, because that is the goal, ultimately, of one of the two goals of the Edge platform, is make your devs' lives easier and provide the service to the business that they need. So as we built that substrate, it's great. Now we can run containers out on the edge. It's fantastic. We got 2,000 clusters out there. They're all operating. They're all pulling configurations from Git. It's unicorns and rainbows. But we heard a common theme. Our application developers immediately reached out to us and said, cool, all my data exists up in the cloud. How am I going to access that? And we said, well, there's a number of ways. You can access it directly, but that doesn't really work if you're in Guam. And they said, well, we'll come up with some replication model. And after we heard that 2 or 3 times, we were like, hold on. Again, we exist to reduce toil, right? So let's create a data cache service. And this was the first service we stood up on the Edge platform, was the ability for teams to pull down data from the cloud that needed frequent access. So if you're a retailer, think things like pricing data, SKUs, coupons, inventory data, things that are looked up at the register every time you scan that cannot sustain 20, 30, 50 milliseconds to go back to the cloud, and they're accessed hundreds of thousands of times, potentially millions of times a day within the store. It also supports offline operations, supporting that business need, right? Fortunately, hopefully, nobody has ever been in this experience in this room, but if you've ever been in the path of a natural disaster, fire, flood, hurricane, any of those things, you know that the Home Depot is one of the last places that people go when the disaster is impending, and one of the first places they go once it has passed, so that they can begin to put their lives back together. We cannot wait on network services. We need to be able to open the store and serve the communities that we're in. So there's a contract when you make this, though. You say, all right, I can pull data from the cloud, and I can present it locally in a data cache, but there is a contract, and that means that the cache is ephemeral, and it is eventually consistent again. And so the idea that as an application developer, you have to get comfortable with the fact that there is no repair if the cache goes sideways. There's just replace and reflow the data. And fortunately, we can do that now within a few, minutes to maybe an hour to repopulate the cache in most stores. But it's part of the understanding for your software engineers and part of that contract of making this work. So great, we've got data out in the store now. We've got it cached, scans are happening locally, it's all awesome. And the next request that comes from our development teams is, how do I get data back out of the store? They're like, oh, shoot, yeah, you might want to increment that inventory count now that you've sold an item. So we created a messaging service. And the messaging service in this case is not focused necessarily on speed of delivery. If you're used to like a PubSub in Google or any of the cloud platforms, it's all about speed. How do I shove those messages as quickly as possible into a pipeline? For us, it's all about guaranteed delivery. We can't necessarily control the environmental conditions that are at the edge. And so we want to take the toil off the developer, say, give us the message, and we will be the guardian of that message until it gets back to the cloud. and we'll take care of that for you. This also created this really nice data lifecycle that I am so happy about, and it's easy for our application developers to work with the platform in this case. Consider if you're an app dev and you need to work with something, say, inventory related. Cool. So we're going to have the latest inventory data for your store in cache. And then when you sell through something, you can drop a message on the message bus, and we'll make sure that that gets back up to the cloud to update the authoritative data source. And then as that source is updated, it'll populate cache, and the wheel goes round and round. It's really elegant. But it opened up new opportunities for issues, because remember, the authoritative data used to live in the store. Now we've got this latent connection to the cloud. And because when you're doing things like this at scale, you're going to find edge cases. And for us, you know, when you think about like an edge case that might happen 1 in a million chance, right? Maybe 1 in a million chance the document that's retrieved is wrong. Well, when you're doing tens of millions of queries a day, that's more than I can count on my fingers, right? You're going to run into these edge cases more frequently. So you have to have a solution for that. Resiliency is not just an up-down game. It has to be, the data has to be correct as well. So we created a replication tracking service. We heard from our SREs, hey, I don't have enough visibility into what's happening in the replication service. We're like, cool, so let's tag some metadata onto the data cache. And this gave us an opportunity as well to exercise our own cache and messaging pipelines. So not only were we waiting or relying on customers to tell us how we were doing, but we're also seeing it ourselves. An ECRT, or Edge Cache Replication Tool, then goes up to the SRE teams and say, hey, if you really need to know the state of the cache, you can go to this tool and look it up at any time. So again, more of that self-service platform operator type concept. I'm giving you the tools to be successful. But what about if we needed to recreate those issues? Right? It's a big environment, millions upon millions of data lookups and transactions. So we created another service called our Edge Test Environments. And these build on that composability I talked about earlier. We can compose the platform pretty much anywhere. So it didn't have to be built out at the edge. It could be built in the cloud. I could build one for you right now. I could build one tomorrow. I could build 10. Or even cooler, it was a critical resource in testing concepts about our platform where we could build 2,300 of them in the cloud and actually do real-world scale testing, which is something we thought impossible in the past. And we tear it back down. And what's cool about this service is we also turn this into that self-service model. So devs can go out there, they can request a test environment. It's built within a few minutes for them, and it assists them in their own testing and troubleshooting as well. They get something that is tangible, it's real, it matches a store environment that they can then iterate on their code with. So cool, you've got all this running, you've got it in production, you've got it in non-production, you've got it out in the edge, the cloud. So now we need to be able to observe things. And I will say one of our lessons learned here is we probably didn't invest in observability early enough in the phase. So we created all of these really cool resources, and they're all running in the environment. And then the question comes, all right, cool, so are they up or down? And we hadn't answered that first question in those goals to say, oh, wait, we forgot about that. And so this one seems obvious, but it was not the first thing that we built. And if anybody has been around the expo floor this week, right, you know that observability is challenging. I walked around and counted 34 vendors on the floor that had the word observability on their banner in their deck, right? There's clearly an opportunity here. But we initially worked on solving this after the platform was matured. And we really aligned our observability around our core goals. Our core goals being, we need to be able to see the state of the fleet at any given time. So what was great is we went out there, we instrumented, and we gained new visibility and new insight into how our stores were operating. Insights that we had never had before. 2 years ago, when a couple hurricanes were moving through the southeast here, we got the first real test of this. Our normal disaster recovery or disaster information processes relied on phone calls to essentially a war room that understood the up-down state of stores across the country. We opened up a dashboard. We said, we can tell you in real time now, up to the minute. And you could follow the graph on the map of stores going down and up as power failures moved across the Southeast and then were recovered. So in several times during that particular incident, we as a platform team knew before the operations center even knew that a store was back up and ready for retail. It moved us to a real-time state, which was really incredible. But we also accidentally created a value-add service here as well, and one that we had not planned on, because then the questions came, well, gosh, can we manage or can we observe the heritage platform with this as well? Turns out, a little bit of extensions, we could. One of the screenshots up here is an environmental condition report. Can we look at the UPSs in the store? Turns out, yeah, we had built a pretty robust pipeline for that. So it went from the idea of can we observe the state of the cube cluster, can we observe the state of the edge cluster, to now all of a sudden we have an observability service. What else can we look at in the stores? And we are gaining more insights day after day as a result of investing in this service. We continue to talk about platform principles, though, and observability is great, but you also need a great developer experience. It cannot just be about metrics. And so this is where DevX or customer experience came in for us. And we started to develop plugins for our internal developer portal. It gave full insights into the edge deployments in a self-service way to our devs. They could see down to each individual change. They could see the state of their pods across the fleet. They could see any location, any environment. This is a absolutely powerful control plane in the hands of our SRE teams and our platform team and our developer teams, right? And this was an investment, again, where we said, you know, we've got to go build this capability, and I think folks were like, okay, cool, like we like self-service, but once it gets turned on, the feature requests start to grow. It's really amazing how that works. It's all sounding great, right? We've got this great foundation, we've got this platform built, this house is looking fantastic. Green grass in the garden, the flowers are coming up. But you know, if anybody has been through any sort of home build, you know there's always the unforeseen challenges. Usually it's drainage. I don't know why. That's a thing. Our drainage problem was storage. Our drainage problem is still storage. And I will say this because one of the things that we've seen is that there are tons of storage solutions for Kubernetes. I almost need a sandbox up here on top of the stage. There are tons of storage solutions for Kube, but they're all designed for not edge. I talked to a ton of vendors out on the floor even this week. The first thing they asked is, oh, what cloud are you running in? I'm like, I'm not. I'm running on my own boxes. Oh, we're not for you, right? Like, every storage solution we've been through at the edge is massive in terms of resource utilization, complexity, cost. I personally would have no storage at the edge if possible, but we know that we need to store some things in motion. We need to have that offline capability. And so this is really a call to the audience. Like there we go, there's my slide. If you have a solution here, we would love to talk to you. I think there is a marketplace for an edge-focused storage capability. But one of the things you want to do with storage, of course, is practice all of your recovery methods, your failure scenarios as well. There is also, I'll name check the edge monsters again. There's a great blog article that was just posted in the last couple months where we talked about this problem as an industry working group as well. And so go check out the storage article we have out there. So great, you got your new house built, you're ready to move in. So the last lesson learned that I want you to take away, because there's always work to be done, is to manage the transformation timeline. So we started this talk talking about understanding your transformation window, when you could make this move, when you could make the change. But remember, you have to control that window as well. You can't infinitely live in two houses, right? You're busy filling the new house with new shiny furniture, you still have the old house to deal with. And remember, because we're located out on the edge, we can't scale, right? We can't just do the thing that you do in the cloud and go like, oh, well, I'll pop up another $5,000 server out at 2,300 sites. That's an $11.5 million ask. Like, that's not happening. So my lesson here that you want to take away is if you build this, you will be a victim of your own success. You will create a platform that people want to use, and they will rush to it. And you need to take an active role in managing the transition. Because if you don't, you're going to wind up in the middle phase where everything's getting squished. Your new platform is growing, your old platform isn't shrinking, and you're caught in the middle, and now your backlog is growing, and now nobody likes you as a platform team again, right? But you can do this, just like you set timelines and schedules for yourself. If you're moving from an old house to a new, you know there's a close date. You know I got to be out. And you know I got to be in the new house at this time, and the movers have to happen. So set that expectation early in your platform build as well. So that's the 8 lessons I want you to take away from our platform build. Think about the moment that you can do the transformation. Think about how you're going to design for the edge. Lean into being eventually consistent, building services for your devs. Invest in observability and testability, because you will find incredible edge cases that you could not have imagined. Storage is still a challenge, and managing that transformation is super, super important. I also want to show you what this new home looks like, right? So we talked about the heritage home and what it was looking like 20, 25 years. Our new home is beautiful. We have a set of services, we have a set of capabilities that we absolutely adore. It moves at the velocity of our business now, and it's all built on top of many of the CNCF technologies that you see here at the conference. And the slide that we love to talk about internally is just the scale of this platform as well. Again, unintended consequences. Nobody set out and said, oh, we're going to do 5.5 billion document moves, but we did it. And 45 minutes to build a foundation, 4 hours for a new piece of code to be deployed chain-wide. We've unlocked incredible agility for our business so that we can respond to customer needs. So hopefully you take away those lessons. You understand what it's going to take to build your edge platform. I got to throw the pitch in here as well. I'm Austin-based, but of course I talked about our home here in Atlanta. If you want to come solve some amazing scalability challenges at one of the largest retailers in the world, we are hiring. And another resource that I don't want you to miss, I name-checked them a couple times, but I'm part of a working group called the Edge Monsters, edgemonsters.dev. There's a ton of blog articles out there where we're talking about industry practices and standards in the edge operating environments. I'm Dillon TenBrink. Thank you for your time today. And go out there, enjoy your day, and thank you for coming.